Sometimes the smallest words can make the loudest noise in our hearts. Sometimes a single comment, written in a quiet moment, can echo louder than anything else in the world. Last night, while the world was sleeping and the streets were silent, one thought kept returning to me again and again. And again, it was simple, almost ordinary, yet it carried a weight I couldn't ignore. Your comment didn't let me sleep, not because it was loud, not because it demanded attention, but because it touched something deeper, something honest. Tonight, I want to talk about that feeling, the strange and beautiful power words can have over us, and how a few simple lines from someone else can stay with us long after the screen goes dark. There are nights when the world becomes completely silent, when the streets outside grow still and the air feels softer than usual, and in those quiet moments, you begin to notice the smallest thoughts moving through your mind. Tonight felt like one of those nights. Everything around me was calm, almost peaceful, yet my mind refused to settle. I turned the lights off, lay down, and closed my eyes, expecting the familiar comfort of sleep to slowly take over. But it didn't. Instead, there was only one thing moving through my thoughts again and again, like a quiet echo that refused to fade. Your comment didn't let me sleep. It's strange how something so small can hold so much power. Just a few words, nothing dramatic, nothing loud, nothing complicated. Words that probably took only seconds to write, seconds to send into the world, seconds to appear on a screen. Yet somehow those same words carried a feeling that stayed with me long after everything else around me had gone quiet. I kept replaying them in my mind, not because I wanted to overthink them, but because they felt real, and real things have a way of staying with us. Music. Sometimes we move through our days without realizing how much influence our words can have on someone else. We write a message, we leave a comment, we respond to a thought, and then we move on with our lives, unaware that somewhere out there another person might read those words and carry them with them for hours, maybe even days. Words travel further than we imagine. They move through screens and through distance, through time zones and quiet rooms until they land in someone's mind at exactly the right moment. That's what happened tonight. Your comment arrived like a small spark in the middle of an ordinary moment. I saw it, read it once, and then again, and then I sat there for a while just thinking about it. Not because it demanded attention, but because it demanded attention, but because it felt honest. And honesty has a unique kind of gravity. It pulls at something inside us. It asks us to pause, to listen, to feel. Later, when the night grew deeper and the world around me began to fade into silence, that same comment returned to my thoughts. I tried to let it pass the way most small things pass through our minds, but it stayed there. Not in a heavy way, not in a stressful way, but in a quiet, thoughtful way, like a soft voice repeating itself gently, reminding me that words matter more than we sometimes realize. There is something beautiful about that idea, the thought that a simple comment written by someone somewhere else could reach another person and become part of their night, not through force, not through noise, but through feeling. It reminds me that connection doesn't always arrive in big dramatic moments. Sometimes it arrives quietly hidden inside a sentence or a few carefully chosen words. As I lay there in the darkness, I started thinking about how often we underestimate the impact of the things we say. In a world filled with constant messages, notifications, conversations, endless streams of words, it's easy to believe that most of them disappear instantly. But some don't. Some stay. Some settle into the quiet spaces of a person's mind and begin to grow into thoughts, reflections, and emotions that weren't there before. Your comment was one of those. It made me think about the way people connect with each other through language, even when they are miles apart. We might never hear the other person's voice, never see their expression, never sit across from them in the same room. Yet somehow a sentence written in sincerity can carry warmth, curiosity, kindness, or mystery across that distance. And sometimes that warmth becomes unforgettable. That's what kept me awake tonight. Not confusion, not worry, but curiosity. The kind of curiosity that makes you replay a moment over and over again because you feel like there's something meaningful hidden inside it. Music. Something worth understanding. Something worth feeling. Your words created that feeling. Maybe you didn't expect them to. Maybe when you wrote that comment, it was just a natural response, a passing thought shared in a moment of honesty. But that's the fascinating thing about human connection. The things we consider small can become meaningful to someone else. The things we write quickly can linger in someone's mind long after we've forgotten writing them. As the hours passed and sleep still refused to come, I found myself appreciating that strange reality, appreciating the way a simple comment could transform an ordinary night into a moment of reflection, appreciating the way words can quietly remind us that behind every screen is another person thinking, feeling, and responding to the world. in their own unique way. There's something comforting in that realization. It reminds us that we're not as distant from each other as we sometimes think. Even in the quietest moments of the night, eve, music, and in rooms where no one else is present, we are still connected through the thoughts we share and the words we leave behind. Your comment became part of that connection. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe sleepless nights like this aren't always a bad thing. Sometimes they are invitations to pause and notice the subtle ways people affect each other. Invitations to recognize that behind every message, every comment, every sentence, there is a human intention. Every sentence, as there is a human intention reaching outward, hoping to be understood. That intention is powerful. It can turn a few simple words into something unforgettable. It can transform a quiet night into a moment of reflection. It can remind someone that even the smallest interaction can carry meaning. Your comment didn't let me sleep because it reminded me of all of that. It reminded me that language is more than communication. It is emotion traveling through symbols and sounds. It is thoughts becoming visible. It is a bridge between minds that might never meet in person, yet still influence each other in quiet, surprising ways. And when those bridges form unexpectedly, they create moments like this one. Moments where the world is silent, the lights are off, and a single sentence continues to live inside someone's thoughts long after it was written. Moments where a person realizes that connection can arrive from anywhere, at any time, through something as simple as a comment on a screen. Moments where sleep becomes impossible, not because of restlessness, but because the mind is busy, appreciating the strange beauty of human interaction. Your comment didn't let me sleep, and somewhere in that sleeplessness, there was a quiet gratitude for the reminder that words matter, that sincerity travels farther than we imagine, and that even the smallest expression of thought can become part of someone else's night. The hidden power of words is something we rarely think about when we use them. They come so naturally to us that we treat them like ordinary tools, like simple sounds or symbols that help us pass time, share information, or respond to a moment. But words are never just that. Behind every word is a feeling, a thought, a memory, or a piece of someone's heart trying to reach another person. And sometimes those words travel further than we ever imagine. A person can sit somewhere quietly, perhaps in a small room, perhaps on a crowded bus, perhaps under a dim light, late at night, and write something simple. Maybe it is only a comment. Maybe it is only a sentence. Maybe it is just a few words typed without much thought. But those few words begin a journey the moment they leave that person's mind. They move through the invisible paths that connect people across cities, across countries, across moments of time, and eventually they arrive somewhere else, in front of someone else's eyes, in the quiet space where another mind is waiting to read them. That moment is where the quiet power of words begins to reveal itself. Because the person who reads those words does not receive them as empty shapes. They receive them through their own emotions, their own memories, their own experiences. Every word becomes something personal once it is read. It passes through the heart before it settles in the mind. And that is why two people can read the same sentence and feel completely different things. Your life and the noise turns into music. Sometimes words make us smile without warning. Sometimes they make us pause and stare at the screen for a moment longer than we expected. Sometimes they remind us of something we had forgotten, or someone we once knew, or a feeling that has been quietly waiting somewhere deep inside us. And sometimes words do something even more powerful than that. They stay. Most words disappear quickly. They pass through our thoughts like wind through an open window. We read them, understand them, and move on with our day. But every now and then, there are words that refuse to leave. Words that quietly return to our minds again and again, not loudly, not aggressively, but gently, like a soft echo in a quiet room. Those are the words that reveal the invisible connection between people. Because when someone writes something honest, something sincere, something that carries even a small piece of their real thoughts, the person reading it can feel that sincerity. It is almost like hearing a voice inside the words, a voice that belongs to another human being who is reaching out through language, hoping to be understood. And when that happens, distance suddenly becomes less important. Two people who may never meet can still share a moment of understanding through a sentence. Two strangers separated by thousands of miles can still influence each other's thoughts through a few lines of text. It happens quietly, almost invisibly, but it happens all the time. Think about how often a simple message can change the direction of someone's day. A kind sentence can lift a heavy mood. A thoughtful response can make someone feel seen and understood. Even a small comment can remind someone that their voice matters. Words carry emotional weight, even when they are written casually. Music. Sometimes a person writes something without realizing how meaningful it might become to someone else. They type a thought quickly, press send, and continue with their life unaware that those same words might stay in another person's mind for hours, perhaps even longer. That is the mystery of communication. We often believe that connection requires grand gestures or long conversations. But the truth is that connection often begins with something very small. A single sentence can open the door to reflection. Few honest words can create a sense of closeness that didn't exist before. And that closeness does not depend on physical presence. You can sit alone in a room and still feel connected to someone through the words they have shared with you. Their thoughts can travel across time and space until they reach you in a quiet moment. And when they arrive, they bring a piece of that person with them. That is the hidden power of language. It allows human beings to share pieces of themselves with others, even when they are far apart. It allows thoughts to survive beyond the moment they were created. It allows feelings to move from one mind to another in ways that no physical object ever could. Words are like small bridges between hearts. Sometimes those bridges are temporary. They appear for a moment and then disappear as quickly as they came. But sometimes they remain. Sometimes they grow stronger the more they are crossed by thoughts and emotions, moving back and forth between people. And when that happens, something remarkable begins to form, a quiet understanding. Not the kind that requires explanation or long conversations, but the kind that exists in subtle recognition. A feeling that someone out there has shared something real with you, something that resonates with your own experience of the world, something that resonates with your own experience of the world. Those moments are rare, but when they happen, they feel meaningful. A person might read a comment or a message and suddenly feel as though they are not alone in their thoughts. They might feel as though someone else, somewhere else, understands something they themselves have struggled to explain. That feeling can be powerful enough to stay with someone long after the words themselves have been read. And sometimes those words return to the mind. At unexpected times, late at night, when the world becomes quiet and distractions disappear, our thoughts begin to wander through the memories of the day. Conversations replay themselves, small moments come back into focus. And occasionally, a sentence someone wrote or said earlier begins to stand out more clearly than it did before. It's almost as if the mind waits for silence before revealing the true impact of certain words. During the busy hours of the day, we move quickly from one task to another. Our attention jumps from one thing to the next, but in the quiet of the night, when everything slows down, the thoughts that matter most begin to rise to the surface. That is when the deeper meaning of words can reveal itself. A sentence that seemed simple at first might suddenly feel more important. A comment that looked ordinary might start to feel thoughtful, sincere, or mysterious, and the mind begins to explore those possibilities, turning them over gently, like a small object held in the hand. Why did those words feel different? Why did they stay in the mind when so many others disappeared? Why did they stay in the mind when so many others disappeared? Why do they continue to return, even when we try to focus on something else? The answers are rarely clear, but the feeling itself tells us something important. It tells us that human beings are more connected to each other than we sometimes realize, that even the smallest exchange of words can carry emotional meaning. That sincerity, even in its simplest form, can travel further than we expect. When someone speaks or writes honestly, the honesty can be felt by the person who receives it. It creates a sense of authenticity that stands out from the endless flow of ordinary messages we see every day. It reminds us that behind every screen, behind every comment, behind every message, there is another human being thinking and feeling just like we are. And that realization can be surprisingly comforting, because in a world that often feels busy and distant, moments of genuine connection are valuable. They remind us Pat communication is more than just exchanging information. It is about sharing pieces of ourselves with others. Sometimes those pieces are small, a thought, a reaction, a sentence written in a moment of reflection, but even small pieces can carry meaning. And when those pieces arrive at exactly the right moment, they can stay with someone in ways we never expected. That is the quiet beauty of words. They are invisible yet powerful. They are simple yet capable of carrying deep emotion. They are small yet able to travel across enormous distances between people. Skip. Every time we write something, we send a small part of our thoughts into the world. Most of the time, we never know where those thoughts will land or what effect they might have. But occasionally, they find someone who reads them at the perfect moment, someone who reads them at the perfect moment, someone who pauses for a moment longer than usual, someone who feels something in those words that makes them stop and think. When that happens, the connection between two people becomes real, even if they never meet, not through physical presence, but through shared thought, through language, through the quiet exchange of meaning that exists inside words. And that is why the power of a simple comment should never be underestimated. because behind those few words might be a feeling that reaches someone at exactly the moment they need it. A moment where a stranger's thoughts become part of another person's night. A moment where language quietly reminds us that we are all connected through the things we choose to say.